The Mnemosyne Synaxis, Towards a Holographic Theory of Astral Inheritance. Professor Piscean, Journal of Symbolic Cosmology. This paper posits the existence of a psychic substrate, the anima mundi or Mnemosyne field, which records and perpetuates archetypal imprints, accessible through specific natal chart configurations. We will explore the mechanisms of this access via the concepts of the Empyrean tides, the chronophagic Ouroboros, and the syzygy of the phantom node. Furthermore, this thesis will be grounded in a retrospective analysis of lost or obscure astrological media, the xenotext, the Leningrad transcript, and the broadcast phenomenon known as the series confessionals, arguing they represent fragmented pre-modern intuitions of this holographic theory. Modern astrology suffers from a poverty of the literal. We speak of Mars as action and Venus as love, but these have become desiccated signifiers, stripped of their numinous ontological power. The pre-modern astrologer, operating within a universe teeming with intelligences, understood that Mars was the principle of violent division, that Venus was the force of coalescent attraction. Their era was anthropomorphism. Ours is reductionism. This paper seeks a third path, a model wherein the planetary bodies are not causes, but resonators. They are massive tuning forks whose specific gravitational and electromagnetic frequencies stir corresponding patterns in a non-local, information-rich field of consciousness, the Mnemosyne field. The natal chart is therefore not a destiny, but a unique resonant frequency for accessing specific bands of this cosmic memory. The Mnemosyne field and the Empyrean tides. The core postulate of this work is the Mnemosyne field, a term I have co-opted and redefined from the fragmentary xenotext, 3rd century AD, known only through rebuttals and proclus. The field is a non-local, a temporal plenum that records the imprint of every archetypal event, not the event itself, but its perfect platonic pattern. Every act of war imprints the pattern of Aries, every act of creation the pattern of Aphrodite. These are the Empyrean tides. The planets and their orbits do not create these tides, but rather act as focal lenses, modulating their flow into our sublunary sphere of time and space. A transit is not an event, but a shift in the qualitative experience of time, a change in the tide washing through the individual psychic shoreline. This explains the often observed phenomenon of out-of-phase transits where the internal psychological manifestation precedes or follows the exact astronomical angle. The tide is already turning before the moon is visibly full. Now let's talk about Antisea and the solstitial gate. The obscure practice of Antisea, the shadow degrees, finds a new justification here. Points equidistant from the Cancer-Capricorn axes, the solstitial gates, are considered mirrors. In the Mnemosyne model, these points are resonant harmonics of one another within the field. A planet at 15 degrees Gemini and its anti-Sion at 15 degrees Cancer are not symbolically linked. They are accessing the same band of the field but through different filters. The 15 degrees Gemini axis is mental, mercurial. The 15 degrees Cancer axis is emotional, lunar. The event pattern is the same, its manifestation qualitatively different. This is not symbolism, it is resonant physics. Ouroboros and karmic metabolysis. If the Mnemosyne field contains all patterns, how does one account for the seeming uniqueness of a life? This is the domain of the chronophagic Ouroboros, a term I have reconstructed from the infamous and suppressed Leningrad transcript, a 16th century Slavic grimoire, parts of which were smuggled into the Bodleian in 1953. The Ouroboros is not a symbol but a process, the soul's mechanism for metabolizing archetypal patterns from the field. The south node of the moon Ketu represents the specific digested archetypal complex the soul has chosen for this incarnation. It is not a past life, but a consolidated crystalline structure of learned behavior and inherent talent, the consumed tale of the Ouroboros. The north node Rahu is the hunger, the specific, undigested, and terrifying archetypal pattern the soul must now consume to achieve growth. The life between the nodes is the process of ingestion and metabolism. Now let's talk about the syzygy of the phantom node. Beyond the known nodes lies a theoretical point, the phantom node or Lilith's syzygy. This is not Black Moon Lilith, but a calculated point representing the soul's next potential hunger, the evolutionary target beyond this current incarnation. Its calculation hinted at in the Leningrad transcript involves a complex harmonic of the precessional cycle and the mean motion of the lunar apogee. To have a major planet or angle in tight aspect to this hypothetical point is to be a vanguard soul, one whose struggles are not for themselves, but for the collective's next stop. Their crises feel alien because they are. They are grappling with an archetypal hunger the species has not yet fully developed. Lost media as anomalous data. The theory proposed here did not emerge ex nihilo. It is an attempt to create a coherent framework for anomalous data points preserved in lost or obscure astrological media. These are not texts to be interpreted, but artifacts to be explained. The Xenotext fragments, preserved in Proclus Refutatio Astrologici, Zeno of Alexandria proposed a universe governed by sympathetic strings, Chordae sympatheti. The planets were plextra that plucked these strings, and the soul was an intoned instrument. His work was dismissed as mystical nonsense. I propose he was describing a primitive theory of resonant frequency, a precursor to the Mnemosyne field model. His lost diagrams set to map the harmonic intervals between planetary orbits would be the Rosetta Stone of a scientific astrology. The Leningrad transcript. This terrifying text speaks of astrology not as a god, but as an alchemy of the spirit. It introduces the concept of sidereal poisoning, the notion that an individual can be overwhelmed by a planetary frequency they cannot metabolize, leading to a literal disintegration of the psyche into the archetype. Example could be a negative Neptune transit, leading not to confusion but to a full psychotic break where the individual becomes the dissolved martyr. The transcript was not a guide for living, but a warning for a dangerous spiritual technology. The series Confessionals, 1978 to 1981, a more modern lost media. This was a series of late-night, unlicensed radio broadcasts from an unknown source in the Scottish Highlands. The host series would take calls and, without asking for a birth time, would describe the caller's dominant psychological struggles with unsettling accuracy, framing them in terms of mineral resonances and botanical affinities, rather than traditional planets. Analysis of surviving recordings suggests she was using a system based on the orbital resonances of the asteroid belt with Earth's magnetosphere. She spoke of the voice of Pallas being louder than Mars in a given week. The broadcast ceased abruptly. I theorized she was an intuitive, untrained practitioner who had stumbled upon a method of reading the Mnemosyne field's activity directly, using the asteroids as a refined, high-resolution sensor array. Her system was a practical, if incoherent, application of Empyrean tides. The qualia of resonance. If aspects are not geometric relationships but resonant interactions, we need a new taxonomy. Conjunction, a fundamental monochromatic resonance. Two planetary principles merge into a single complex frequency. The result is a new indivisible archetypal compound. Opposition, not tension but interference. Two powerful coherent waves create a standing wave pattern of nodes and antinodes. This creates a life of stark contrasts of zones of intense archetypal expression, antinodes, and zones of eerie emptiness, nodes, explaining the all or nothing quality of this aspect. Square, a beat frequency. Two incongruent frequencies create a third, lower frequency pulse of friction and frustration. This beat frequency is the engine of conscious effort and development. Trine, harmonic resonance. The frequencies are simple multiples of one another, creating a stable, reinforcing pattern. Energy flows effortlessly, but can lead to stagnation, a beautiful but fixed pattern. The obscure aspect, the quincunx, 150 degrees. This is the most misunderstood aspect. It is not adjustment, it is a phase shift. Two frequencies are related but out of phase by a critical margin. The individual perpetually feels the need to realign the phases, leading to the constant nagging and often hypochondriacal need for adjustment. It is a resonant dissonance. Conclusion. The astrologer as a field technician. This model, synthesized from fragmented lore and speculative physics, redefines the astrologer's role. We are no longer fortune tellers or even merely psychologists. We are field technicians. Our task is to analyze the client's unique resonant frequency, the natal charts, assess the current and period tides, the transits, and diagnose any blockages in the metabolysis process, the nodal and phantom node dynamics. The goal is not to predict the future, but to identify the specific archetypal patterns that are active and to help the individual build a psychic immune system capable of metabolizing them for growth rather than being consumed by them. We are moving from an astrology of what to an astrology of how. The lost media of our tradition were not mere curiosities, they were the flickering, half-remembered dreams of this very paradigm. It is now our task to build the science they could only intuit.